This is Scott Pape, the Barefoot Investor.
Yeah, Scott Pape joins us this morning off the back of a story that he saw on ABC News on Friday night. We want to play the introduction and the setup, and then we'll come back and have a chat about it. Have a listen to this. If you're a home owner, if you're holding a mortgage, if you've deferred your mortgage, listen in, turn this up. It's a serious story. Let's discuss it in a serious way.
The National Australia Bank chief has issued a warning to borrowers who are struggling to pay their mortgages because of COVID. Get out while you can. The bank unveiled its June quarter update showing more and more people are opting to defer their loan repayments.
NAB delivered its quarterly update, a 7% fall in cash profit for the June quarter. Its bad debt provisions have more than doubled in a year, and these are the borrowers who haven't had their loan repayments deferred. NAB CEO Ross McEwan wants you to know that every reasonable step will be taken to keep people at their homes. But he said some people having difficulties paying their mortgage might be better off selling out early and taking some equity out of their homes before it disappears. Don't say you weren't warned.
Scotty Pape, the Barefoot Investor, joins us right now. That is an unusual, unprecedented comment from the CEO of a bank, Pape, saying maybe sell your house. What did you make of all that?
Get out now is what he's saying. Yeah, what's interesting, there's a few things that I think are really interesting about this. The first one is that, as we know, bank CEOs really don't talk like this. They're kind of politicians. They stick to their knitting. They get paid tens of millions of dollars. So why is Ross McEwan, the CEO of NAB, sticking his neck out? Well, I reckon it's because the banks know what's coming down the pike. They've had a look at it. We all should understand that banks have spent billions of dollars getting real-time customer analytics. So they know exactly what's going on with their customers, where they're spending, where they're not. And I think genuinely, the banks are really worried about this. So we've deferred 1 in 10 mortgages in Australia right now are deferred. So that's $274 billion. And I think it's a pretty grim situation, both for the banks. I mean, they can't continue having 10% of their customers not paying. And for the customers who may be getting a holiday repayment, a loan repayment, but deferral, but they're still racking up interest. So it is a very grim situation.
So what's your recommendation on this? What's the tipping point for people, do you think, Scott?
Well, I think it's actually really good advice. What he was saying, and I don't want to take him out of context, he says, Ross McEwan said, we've seen in other crises around the world when people try and hold on and they end up walking away with nothing. So what he's really referring to are those people who are not going to be able to get their jobs back, who are really struggling. He's saying, make the decision now. And as a not-for-profit financial counsellor, that's one of the things that I say to my clients right now. If you don't see your situation getting any better, don't take this as a home loan holiday. This is a time that you've been given a reprieve to get your stuff in order. And that may be selling your home, even though the banks are all saying that they're going to try and keep people in their homes. If you are struggling, the time to start thinking about this is now.
Okay, so you've got a situation at the moment where we can't have open for inspections. There's not much on the market at the moment. People who are going to buy a house are not exactly storming the real estate agents at the moment because they're feeling the same stresses as the people who might want to be selling. Are we getting into a spiral there where the bubble's about to burst? How can, if for people who have said, who come to this conclusion, go, yep, you're right. Right at this moment, probably I'm better off selling my house. Yes. How do they go about it, and how do they not do the lot in one go?
Yeah, okay. So there's two things that I would say. The first one is that generally speaking, you should be talking to the bank or talking to somebody like me at the National Debt Helpline, 1-800-007-007. We're not for profit and we will stand beside you when you're dealing with the banks. But the most important thing to do is actually start moving. Often what we find, and you would see this, Darc and Ed yourself, is that when people get stressed, they just don't make any decisions. They just sit there and as the market slides, they get into more trouble. So get on the front foot and actually start making those tough decisions. Again, you can call the National Debt Helpline and we'll help you go through your options.
Might get everyone to call now, 133353. I'm sure people listening this morning have been doing exactly as Pape said, and that is delaying it, just hoping that things will improve. Give us a call, 133353. Keen to hear your story. We've got Scotty Pape with us this morning. He might give you some real-time advice on how it could play out. Big story this morning. 1 in 10 loans deferred, Ed, and some advice that perhaps getting out now might be the way to go.
13353. Scott Pape is joining us right now. These days, as you said, an independent advisor. Scott, you don't have any connections to banks or institutions, and is part of that debt helpline. That's 1-800-007-007. Pape, we'll take some calls when we return right after this. It's an interesting one, isn't it? The common thinking is if you can hold on through a crisis, but if you are struggling, first loss, best loss is what they used to say in the stock market. Let's find where the balance is on all that. 1-33353. Plenty of callers coming through. I'd like to give you some advice this morning on Triple M's Hot Breakfast.
9 minutes to 8. This is Triple M's Hot Breakfast. Top of 16 degrees in Melbourne today. Scotty Pape is the Barefoot Investor. He also gives out advice for people on the National Debt Helpline, and we'll give that number in a minute. Pape, we're discussing this morning pretty stressful time for a lot of people, and taking some calls. 1-33353.
1 in 10 mortgages in Australia have been granted temporary repayment deferral. So there's a lot of our listeners who are going to be very worried at the moment.
And the CEO of the NAB Bank has come out and said, Pape, in quite remarkable fashion. What's his words?
His idea is basically get out now. If you are struggling to make your loan repayments, now is the time to be thinking about getting out. Otherwise, you may end up walking away with nothing.
Matt's on the line from Beveridge. You got a question for Scotty Pape. Matt, take it away.
Yeah, guys, thanks, Scott. Quick question. Obviously, it's a pretty big comment, Like, if a lot of people need help at the moment, and he's come out and said, if you're struggling, sell your house. Like, it's a huge call. But secondly, if someone does have some equity in their property and they decide to sell, what do they do then? Are they advised to go on rent or go live with mum and dad? What's the next step? For those that are, there's a lot of, you don't want people getting their hands on some money and just doing stupid things. Like, a lot of blokes and even families are struggling at the moment. It needs to be, a bit more information, I think, just to give some people some hope.
Yeah, I would agree. So when I'm talking to people, the first thing that I would say is that you are right, it is a huge call to be selling the family home. And if we can avoid it, we will. But what you really need to do is sit down and look at all your options. So that what I'm saying is, right now, if you are really struggling, the time to call your bank or to call the National Debt Helpline is right now, because there will be more and more people as this coronavirus and the economy turns down, especially here in Victoria. So the time to get on top of it is right now, and really just work through your options. So it may be that it will be better for you to take that equity, rent, and have some money behind you if you are in that situation where you don't think you're going to be able to continue employment. But the first thing that I would say is,
The key you're saying, though, here, Pape, is you've just got to be on top of your situation, and don't hope, to use the quote of John Kennedy, don't hope, do. Get yourself right, know where you are, and be comfortable more than anything else. Let's go to Kenny from Geelong. G'day, Kenny.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
No problem, Kenny.
Yeah, look, just before Corona hit in January, I decided to get my stuff together and opened a trust for my kids and bought, like around $25,000 worth of like ETFs. I then watched the stock market immediately plunge all the way down to nothing, and then have watched it subsequently rise to almost record highs again.
Yes.
So I'm almost at the 0 point again. I'm just wondering whether the call for selling while you can in the housing market would cross over into the stock market as well.
Kenny, how old are your kids?
They're very young. So I've got twin 10-year-olds and a 14-year-old.
Right. So you've got at least 10, 15 years before you're actually going to need that money. Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay. So in my view, if you've got 10 or 15 years before you are actually needing that money, the share market is the best place to be investing for the longer term. That's not to say that there won't be bumps and lumps along the way. But right now, if you stick that money into a term deposit or a cash account, you're basically getting nothing. If you're going to take a long-term view, I think that you would be investing in the share market. The only time that I would say that the share market is very, very risky is if you're taking a day or a week or a month or a year to long-term, short-term view. Because we just don't know what's going to happen. There are too many variables with this coronavirus and with what's happening with Trump and China. to be able to make any forecast that makes any sense.
Yeah, or along the same lines, if you've borrowed to go into the share market and you've got debt accumulating,
well,
I suppose
you would just be crazy. You just
There
should not be doing that.
Thanks, Kenny, for your call. Alicia's on the line from Flemington. Scotty Pape is with us. What's your question this morning, Alicia?
Yeah, morning, guys. My question is around buying, not selling. So my husband and I, we're ready to buy. We've been ready to buy for most of this year. We live in a one-bedroom apartment with our 2-year-old, and we're just bursting at the seams. And we're considering maybe going into a rental, a slightly bigger rental until we're ready to buy, or is it better to just buy now, or like when will be the best time for that?
The best time to buy a home is when you can afford it and you find a house that you love that you're going to stay in for 10 years. For me personally, interest rates are low. If you were going to stay there and take, again, a little bit like Kenny, a long-term view, right now is a great time. If you can afford it and you can see that your jobs are secure, when you find a house that you love, I would be buying it. That would be my view.
Thanks, Alicia, for your call. Paul's on the line from Reservoir. What's your question to Scotty Pape?
Yeah, just a quick one. Taking money out of, I'm 52. Is it better for me to take money out of my super now to put into, to either buy a house or to put into my home loan? Like, will I make or save more money on my interest by doing that than I would earn through my superannuation?
Well, no one can really answer that question because it's a crystal ball. I don't have it. But the one thing that I would say is with your superannuation, it's protected from bankruptcy. Long term, it's going to compound for you. It's in a low tax environment. I would be keeping my money in super. There are very few reasons that I'll be pulling money out of super before I retired, because that's your nest egg, your long-term security, and I would just be leaving it there if I possibly can.
What about the situation at the moment, Scott, where we're seeing people pulling out some of their money and then going to the government, not subsidy is not the word I'm looking for, the government plan where you can get 95% of your loan to be a first home owner. There's a few different twists and turns in these things as people try to not game the system, but playing on the margins. And from what I'm hearing from you this morning, you're saying don't play on the margins.
No, I mean, I think this is, it's always uncertain when you're making financial decisions, but never more than, we've been doing this show for over 10 years. I've never seen a more uncertain time than right now. And I would just be going back to those basic things of making sure you've got a good deposit, that you're not playing at the margins, that you're not playing the short-term game. You have to take the long-term game because the future is so uncertain right now.
And you'd be recommending people that if they've got any questions, speak to their bank or go to your organisation, which is?
The National Debt Helpline, 1-800-007-007. We're not affiliated with any bank. We're funded in part by the government. So we will stand with you, help you work out your options and work with you independently.
Thank you, Pape. Always great to catch up with Scotty Pape in these uncertain times. And you can see the amount of callers coming through. Financial stress at the moment is off the chart.